How do you build a high-performing culture? This is Culture Architects. Candid conversations with extraordinary leaders sharing their biggest successes, failures, and lessons learned on their culture journeys. Here's David J. Friedman.
Today's guest at the Culture Architects podcast calls himself the Chief Servant Leader of Educational Data Systems, Inc., or EDSI. Kevin started as a training consultant with EDSI in 1994, so this goes back a while, and he worked his way up to eventually become the CEO, or as he calls it, Chief Servant Leader, in 2007. Under his leadership, EDSI today is not only a growing organization and a provider of customized training and workforce development solutions, but it's also a top workplace. They've won a ton of different awards to show for it, and we'll talk more about that. So, Kevin, welcome to the Culture Architects podcast.
Thanks, David. Thanks for asking me. It's an honor to be here.
It's great to have you. So you've got sort of an interesting background in having worked in this one company for so many years and gone from, just starting in the HR world and working your way up. And so give me a little bit more background. How did you come to EDSI in the first place?
Yeah, total accident. Really fell into it backwards. I was doing some other things. I told my parents when I was in college that I wanted to be a sportscaster. I had the hair and the cheesy grin, so it seemed like a good for me. And like good parents, they said, "Hey, you'll be amazing, but just in case, why don't you get a certificate to teach in high school?" So I was trained as an educator, working in television when I first graduated. And like you, David, I had a dad who was an entrepreneur, and in that way, I had been around the company since I was 7 years old. Wow. At EDSI here when he founded it, and never imagined working here. But I would have conversations with him about his work and what he was doing. And at one point, he told me that he had an opportunity to place 50 dislocated steelworkers in Pittsburgh. And I thought, what a cool project. And I offered to help him develop some curriculum as I was working in television. So I worked about 100 hours that first year out of college, and then finally made a choice to go into his office one day and say, "Hey, can I do this full time? I'd love to do this and grow this opportunity with you."
And do you have other siblings that were in the business, or it was just you?
Older brother, younger sister. Nobody had any intention of working here as a career, but we all did a turn, as high school and college students. Okay. My brother went on to do some really cool things in the academic world. My sister is a social worker and, doing different things. But yeah, it was not planned for any of us.
So when we talk about workforce development solutions, that sounds very complicated, and yet sometimes it's hard for people to understand, like, what does that actually mean? Yeah, so explain for our audience, what exactly is workforce development? What do you do?
Somebody told me at one point, David, if you can't describe what your company does to hold the attention of a 13-year-old, you're not doing it correctly. Yeah. So our purpose in the work that we do is to put people in front of a better mirror. And really that means to me that we walk alongside people to try to help them find a job. So in workforce development, we're taking people who are chronically unemployed and really economically disadvantaged, what people call the hardest to serve, and we're helping them to find jobs. And then we're helping people who are in existing jobs to improve their workplace or improve their actual processes within that job.
Interesting. And so who are the customers?
Yeah, for us, large municipalities. These are block grants that come down through the states, and then most of our customers are counties at the county level or city level is where we're most comfortable. And then we have lots of cool companies that we're helping with customized training.
And so you're providing the program for this municipality or this government entity to help the people, to serve the people that are their constituents.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully the 13-year-olds are still tuned in, but yeah, we're good.
So walk us through. So you join this was your dad's company, and you join and say, all right, I want to be part of this. This is going to be exciting. You start. What's the first job you start at in the company?
Yeah, gosh, he did everything right, David. From a kind of retrospective look back, reflection, and he was always fair but not generous, he would say. So he paid me $20,000 that first year. I reported to someone else, and I was officially called a training consultant at that point. So I was doing a lot of work within, the programs for sure. We were helping to design those programs and to grow that work. But early on, again, I reported to someone else. I just did basic blocking and tackling to try to help get those offices set up. But, in my 30 years here, it'll be 30 years in August this year. And it's gone from 9 to 900. So it's been quite a change and a lot of great learning.
And is your father still alive?
He is not. He passed away in 22. Yeah.
And so when he looks back, and I'm sure you had conversations, for some of our audience may know that I worked with my father very early on, and my father retired. He actually went to law school full time when he retired, which was kind of interesting. And my father would always say, he passed away a little over a year ago, so similar. And my father would often say, in looking back at what I and others did in our company, that he never would have been able to do that. He was very proud of what we had built because it was so far beyond what he had started. And I'm curious, so when did your father no longer be part of the company, and what were the conversations you had with him about what you had built over those years from 9 to 900 people?
Yeah, thanks, David. And I'm pretty good with social cues. I'll watch for your eyes to glaze over if my story drags not too long. But it was really cool because I loved working with my dad. I really did. He remains the greatest leader that I've been around. And he was a very different leader than I was. He would say that, not me. So we had lunch 1 or 2 times a week for 13 years. And so we got to have a lot of great conversations. And so as he reflects on that stuff or would talk to me about it, he came to me at one point. We had 4 arguments in 13 years. And maybe we should have had 44 great conversations, but we had 4 arguments. Each time I would resign or he would offer me a buyout. And so these were big things. Each time he would go home and he would talk to my mother, who is still with us. And my mom would kind of set him straight. She was the only one that could kind of get through to him in terms of telling him what to do. And so he would come in the next morning and he'd say, hey, I talked to your mom and here's what we're going to do. So the last time we had that conversation, about 5 years before he retired, he said, I talked to your mom. She said that you're doing everything with people and I'm screwing it up and I'm getting in the way. So you're going to do everything with HR and everything and with operations. And he named me the chief operating officer.
Okay.
And then he said, I'll do banking and sales and we'll stay out of each other's way. So for 5 years, we didn't have any hard words with one another, any discussions or any difference of opinion. And then he came to me one day at lunch. I thought he would work until he was 95 and toddle off in the sunset. And, he came to me one day at lunch and he said, hey, this isn't adding any years to my life. I never wanted a company with 200 people. You are your mother's son. And you love people and you have a patience for people that I don't have. And so it's time for me to leave. And it's the perfect opportunity. Get your own attorney and I'll get my own attorney and we'll figure out a deal over a year. And then I bought it over 13 years, ending in 2020.
Wow. So it was 200 people at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you know what? He was right, David. And no false humility. I don't take any credit for what's happened in this company other than to facilitate great conversations and ask great questions of people. At my heart, I'm a coach and I'm a teacher. And I became an entrepreneur by accident. And so I just facilitate great conversations and try to, be the architect. I love what you called your podcast, right? Originally, we can be architects, but people are going to live in this space. They're going to grow this space. They're going to build it. We're trying to help them define what it looks like. But I really love that he was right. He just turned it over at the right time. And I have enough humility to know that there will be a time for me to turn it over too in that same way.
And so is there succession, without revealing anything that maybe is proprietary, is there succession planning going on as you think about, what's next for you?
Yeah, my greatest goal, and I haven't announced this to the company, so, some people might see this and that's okay, right, David? But, my greatest goal has always been to sell it to our employees, to have some form of employee ownership is really what I see the next phase for EDSI, and working really hard on that right now to hopefully be able to make some kind of an announcement in the next few months here.
That's fantastic. So let's go back to early on. You said that you, by nature, you're a teacher, you're a coach, you're a mentor. So that's your style. And I identify that with that, of course, myself. And somewhere early on in your career, and maybe it was just a natural extension, it sounds like, from your personality, but somewhere early on in your career, you figured out that the culture in an organization has a big impact on how people perform. Where did that come from? How did you first discover that?
Yeah, I was really, really lucky. Again, my dad and I went to a family business meeting after he had decided he was leaving and was introduced to what we know as Vistage, which at that time was the executive committee. And I met a coach who remained my mentor for 15 years. And Larry was about 76 when I met him and 92 when he passed away. And we had this great relationship. And so the first conversation he and I had was vision, mission, values, and purpose. And so we started talking about culture. I knew that, I think, intuitively, as you implied, David, and asked. And he just helped me to define it and really started working on it very directly with me. I also was super lucky to have some great training at the Ritz-Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
And so they helped me in understanding their basics. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of that blocking and tackling. And I know you and I have talked about that in the past. And so really just, again, people don't like to hear this, but you can have a plan and then you have to adjust. And so
Right.
I think the best plans really for us are, we're making them, we're doing very intentional things, but then we have to be able to adjust and to learn. And I've been very, very fortunate as I've made those pivots to just come into the right relationships and the right kind of information as I reach out and look for different kinds of learning.
So what was so you met Larry, your Vistage chair, and he started to turn you on to this whole idea, especially since you were an entrepreneur, as you said, by accident,
Yeah.
because you probably weren't thinking about these necessarily. And Larry introduces you to this idea that, hey, this stuff's actually pretty important. So how did you introduce this to your company, and how did people respond when you first introduced it?
Yeah, not well.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really funny, David, because, Larry said, well, I want to facilitate a conversation with your folks and really talk about this in more detail. We need some values.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going back, 17 years ago now when I bought the company. And, he said, I'm going to come in and do this facilitation. So I brought in about 10 to 12 people who are our
Mm-hmm.
best representatives from around the country. And, the first day they fired him because he said he didn't like our mission statement. So in the
Uh-huh.
second day of this 3-day experience, I'm now the facilitator.
Uh-huh.
And that was going okay. And then in the third day, I'm driving in and I told my wife the night before I drove in, I said, I feel terribly because I brought these people in. I've wasted their time. I don't have anything. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
strike it out. And I can remember the strip of road I was on when I heard the words in my head, like, what have we really talked about for 3 days? We've talked about all these behaviors. We've talked about the way we live. And what do they mean to me, right? This is how people show up, smile, and support. This is how
Mhm.
people are showing up for one another, putting other people before themselves, being positive, a positive force to illuminate other people, and then also to just, support them, to really give them what they need to be great. So show up,
Mhm.
smile, support. And I went back into the room and I told them that, and they all had some combination of laughter and booze and, really rejected. And I said, well, executive privilege, this is what we're doing. And we
Mhm.
move forward. And I think that was what, Larry, in essence, wanted people to do is he thought that it had to come from the leader, that
Mhm.
initial push had to come from the leader. And that's important. I think we were able to get a breakthrough there and some real good serendipity that has carried us a long way.
It's an interesting experience that you had there as you invoked, as you called it, executive privilege to say, well, this is what we're going to do, whether you want to boo or laugh about it. And it's something, you heard me talk in Vistage twice.
Yeah.
And I say this in every Vistage group. I talk about the fact that, and for our audience members that may not be as familiar with Vistage, is a CEO peer organization. And so Kevin and I met through his Vistage group originally a number of years back. And I speak to many, many Vistage groups. And one of the things I always talk about is that, in my view, one of the biggest mistakes organizations make is making this too collaborative a process, this being the development of our vision of what is it that we're trying to be, whether we call it vision, mission, purpose, values, behaviors, whatever language you want to use around it. So many organizations try to bring everybody together and figure out what everybody wants. And at least from my perspective, I always say, it's what you want. You're the leader. It's your job. Not only is it your privilege, you call it your executive privilege, I call it your executive responsibility. It's actually your job to be the author of where. Now, to add nuance to that, I always say that it's important to get input from your team, but the language I always use is I say they are contributing to your thinking. Their input is valuable insights into your thinking, but at the end of the day, it's I'll call it your executive responsibility more than your executive privilege to be able to say, this is where we're going. That's what leaders do.
Yep.
And it's interesting you had that experience.
No, it's great, David. Great way of saying it too. I think that's perfect leadership advice, right? This, you have to show people where we're going.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And this is something that I have found to be true in just my experience working with so many leaders, that there's this trend in leadership discussions, I think, And I think maybe this is just misunderstood by people more so than intended, but there's this trend toward thinking that everything needs to be a collaboration. We need to make sure everybody's happy with everything we do. And what's so interesting is when I speak to group, I'll talk about Vistage again. Vistage is, again, for our audience members, has both CEO groups and also what are known as key groups or key executives. And when I speak to key executives, so often, or let me say it this way, when I speak to CEOs, so often they're worried about making sure that everybody on the team feels included and wants to be a part of it and is their input. And when I speak to the key executives, their biggest frustration is my CEO won't make a damn decision. They want the CEO. They're saying, please tell me where we're going. I'm happy. I'm glad if you give me some input, that's great. But tell me what you want and I'll go there. And meanwhile, the CEOs are dancing around trying to make sure everybody's happy. And it's just a funny sort of almost contradiction or I'm not sure what the word is, but it's a funny dynamic between the two. And there is a place to lead.
It's a great point, David, because people make, as leaders, sometimes you observe them making these big events to try to solicit people's opinion, to get values or to build the culture that way. And I agree with you. I think it's how you do it. Everything in my career that's been great in my life, frankly, has come through evolution and learning, not revolution. So it's really hard to say, hey, we're going to have this big event and this is what it's going to be. And most of the time it leads to disappointment. So I talk to all 900 of our representatives every year. On a cadence of groups of 10 or smaller. And so I know what they're thinking. I'm listening to them. I'm asking them, what would you change about the company? And so as you do that as a regular practice, you're talking to people, you're listening, you can sit down and write the vision for the next 3 years. You can help to say, hey, do we need to infuse anything differently into our behaviors about our culture? Because you are paying attention, you are listening, but it happens over a period of time and is a matter of practice, not an event.
Yeah. So talk more about how you do that. So you just said that you talk to all of your members, or you call them representatives. Is that?
Yeah, representatives, colleagues, family members. Yeah, family.
And so you talk to these people all the time. Tell me more about the structure of that. So you said you do this in groups of 10. Tell me more about how that works.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to work with Jen, my executive assistant, for more than 17 years now. And so Jen is truly the most talented person. And so she helps me organize that in a way that we meet with them, either in person or via video. If I can travel around, I'd rather do it in person, but they come in for a half an hour, 10 people or less. And the first thing I do is I won't let them talk about work. And so I just say, hey, thumbs up, thumbs down, just give me an update on what's going on in your life. And then I say, we need to leave space for those things that are hard too. How are you doing? And so as we have those conversations and they give me a brief 2-3 minute update, then I'll say, okay, tell me one thing that you are looking forward to. And we need to look forward to something, right? And so over the next 12 months, what are you looking forward to? Oh, I'm having a grandbaby. I'm going to a wedding. I'm taking a cruise. But Jen's with me on these conversations, right? And so she's either listening in remotely or she's with me in person. And so she's taking notes and I'm taking some to ask follow-up questions to show them that I'm listening. She's taking notes to put it in my calendar. So every day, David, I'm reaching out to people to say, hey, I know you had that wedding, or I know you're leaving on your cruise tomorrow. And it creates this great interaction. We've been doing this now for about 6 years. And I keep what I call baseball cards. And so Jen's built this huge program for me where the front of it has their picture, and then it has some details about who they report to. And the back of it has all their notes from 5 or 6 years of stories about their kids or what's going on, so that if I go to their office, I can look at my baseball cards and say, okay, who's here and I can't remember my stories, right? But I can, be intentional about how I'm trying to stay connected with them. And you wouldn't believe how it's grown. They reach out to me now from a place of safety and tell me stuff that I never would have surfaced without that, good and bad, and celebratory in their own lives, but stuff I need to know about the business that they're coming directly to me with and saying, I need help.
I've never heard that idea. Love that idea. Really brilliant. It's a reminder. One of the fundamentals we talk about sometimes, we call it practice the human touch, which is what you're doing. And I've sometimes talked about the fact that you can use systems and processes to support your ability to be connected on a human level. And that's really what you're doing, that those aren't opposite of each other, that technology, and you've created great systems to enable you to be more personally connected with people. I love that idea. I need to adopt that. That's a
Please
fabulous
do.
idea. And so where did you come up with that idea?
I love people, right? I love people. It came from a place of frustration that as we grew from 200 to 400, it's like I wasn't feeling as connected to people. I think leaders make the mistake of talking to the same 6 people on their leadership team. You've got to get out there. I was talking to the CEO, I was listening and talking and meeting with the CEO of Meijer, $26 billion grocer here in Michigan. And he said his favorite thing to do is just get out there and walk the aisle, right? He still wants to go and look at how the stores are set up and come into contact with every single person. And so he'll get in their world, right? He'll get on their jet and fly and to Kentucky and go walk the stores of the aisles. And so I think that's really important to stay connected as just a human and listen to what's important to them, mostly in their lives and also in their work lives.
It's in my first company, I did something. We were much smaller. We had about 100 people, and I did something that was somewhat similar. I like what you did better, but my assistant would set up regular lunches with me, for me with a handful of people, and I called it. We weren't exclusively focused on work, but it was a mixture of work and family, and I called it my best places to work lunches, and I asked people questions. Part of the goal was just to get to know people and for them to get to know me, because I'm sure you said the same thing. Some of your people who didn't know you probably, oh, he's the president, he must be scary. And when they get to know you, they realize, no, you're just a regular guy with same kinds of things as they are. Yeah. But one of the questions I always asked people was, so what makes any place, not necessarily our company, but what makes any place a great place to work? Like what matters to you? And if I distill what I heard from people, this is kind of in a way, it's a sad comment, but in a way, it's a good comment. What I heard more than anything that people appreciated about our company was, and what they wanted was to be treated like adults. And what they meant by that was to be trusting of them, to trust that, if they needed time off, it wasn't because they were shirking their responsibilities. It's because they had a family thing they had to take care of or whatever, that we didn't treat them like children. And I say that's kind of sad, because it's sad that would not be the norm everywhere, that the people go places that they're treated like children. But it was enlightening that that's all they wanted. They didn't want a ping pong table in the reception area, and they didn't want pizza every Friday. They wanted to be treated like adults. And do that. And that mattered more to them than anything else.
It's every great relationship is foundational in trust.
Yeah.
And so, treat me like an adult, trust me. And I think organizations sometimes withhold trust with some probationary period, hoping people earn that trust. And we do it day one. We're going to get burned every once in a while, but for the large part, you're not inconveniencing a bunch of people. You're saying, we trust you. You're a talented person. Thank you for bringing your skills here, and we trust you.
Yeah, that's powerful. So go back to, I love what you're doing there. Go back to, you created, back when you first created the values and statements of what your company's about. And so what do you do with those? How do you practice them? How do they come to life in your company?
Yeah, and listening to you speak twice, which is a gift, David, really. And I'd like to have a moment to tell a moment of story of gratitude, that I have for you about the first time you spoke. Before I do that, just to pay homage to your question, I know you and I share some great love of what we learned from the Ritz-Carlton, really, and modeling what they do with their basics. And so we call them the daily ways. I know you call them the fundamentals, and in many ways it's borrowed from, for me, personally, from the Ritz-Carlton. And what they do at the beginning of every shift, we do on the beginning of every week. And so we say, hey, here's the daily way that we're focused on. It's, I treat my colleagues like customers would be one of the things that we're talking about. And so that goes out to 900 people in a video. And I interview a leader in that video about what that means to them. And so that cadence repeats. We have 12 daily ways. And within those, 12, it shows up every 12 weeks. And so it's really fun to have a conversation as you and I are today to let people see other leaders within the company. I'd be even more comfortable if I wasn't on the video and they were just doing their own video, because I think sometimes it can be intimidating to, have the interaction, on video. And so I would love them to just prop up their iPhone in their living room and do 3 minutes of their own riff on that. So we'll get there. It was something I've talked to our folks about maybe in the evolution. We try to make sure that it's repeated, and over time, people are consistently hearing them. What's so fun to see, David, and I'm guessing that you saw this in your own companies, but people then reference them, right? It's like, I always arrive on time is a simple one, but it's important. And you come in late, people are like, well, I hope you live some of the other daily ways today. Right? Which one of the other ones are you going to try to live today? So you give each other some good badinage, some good ribbing about it, but you're aware then that they're aware and they're cheering them. And so that's important for us. And do they know show up, smile, support? Sure. Those are action words too. And that's important because everyone can anchor on those. I don't ask people to memorize the 12 daily ways. If you were to put me on the spot and say, rip them off, I couldn't right now. But we see that what we've done with show up, smile, support is summarize what all those words mean. It's not an act of trying to squeeze them into that. It's really, those are the descriptions we see. And so, everybody, it's on the wall behind me. It's on sweatshirts, and people have really been drawn to that. Nice. So it's a big recruitment tool for us. Can't tell you how many times I talk to our representatives and they say, I saw your video. It's really the culture is what I'm drawn to. This is how I find I'm living as a person in my own life, and I want to live that way professionally. And it's very, very powerful, right? It's a magnetic push. But anyway, give me a brief moment just to pay you a moment of gratitude because people I don't know if you remember this, but in my Vistage group were kind of teasing us the first time you spoke because we shared much in common and in our lives. And so you were nice enough to say, hey, I'll be back in town. Maybe we can get together. And we had dinner. And at that time, your kids were a little bit older than mine. Mine were very young at the time, David. And I said to you, hey, if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently? You said, I'd bring the values that I've worked on in the company home, to that kitchen table essentially. And so I went home to my wife and I said, hey, what are the behaviors that we're looking for the girls to live? And if we started, we think about show up, smile, support, but we're really, what are we looking for them to be? Who are they looking for them to be in the world? And so we wrote our own, behaviors, our own daily ways, and on a laminated card. And every Monday at dinner, I would say, hey, girls, we're really focused on this. We celebrate our mistakes. And so, I will say to them sometimes when they don't feel like doing something, we show, right? We show up for other people. And so that's really fun. I also had coins made. Like we do every gratitude coins here at the company where we have show up, smile, support, the company logo. We did a family logo on one side and show up, smile, support on the others. I just this week, they both did two beautiful things. And I walked into their bedroom separately and I said, hey, I gave them a coin. And our older daughter had spoken up. She's the captain of the tennis team. Our younger daughter's a freshman. She's trying to make the varsity team. And the coach was asking the captains, hey, who should I have my eye on? And she said, hey, Riley, what about my sister? And he said, oh, I've been hearing good things about her. She's working really hard. And absolutely, I'll take a look at her. And so I said, you didn't need to do that, right? That's an awkward thing to do sometimes for your sister, but you did that. And you showed up and you supported your sister. And then I walked into the other room and our 14-year-old had chosen to go to an Ash Wednesday church service with me. She didn't need to do. She was the only 14-year-old in the room and so in the church. And so I said, hey, that was big that you chose to do that. And you didn't need for me like that. And you did. So and they both had these grins from ear to ear. It means a lot to them. People will say to me, do they have any monetary value? And I said, I would never devalue them.
Yes.
In a monetary place. And not to correct them, but just to say this is what they mean to us because we're catching them doing what's right. Yeah. We're paying attention. We've given away more than 5,000 of those coins at EDSI. And so beautiful because when they get one, they give one. And so I've had videos of like a 3-year-old kid that's reading it at home. And so it just says, give it to someone that helps you be great. For some people, that's their child. For some people, it's their colleague. And really, really cool to see that generosity spread and the gratitude spread throughout the organization.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Thank you. You changed my life. It's not overstating it to say you changed my life and our family's life, David. So
I appreciate you saying that. Here ends the first part of my conversation with Kevin Schnieders, CEO and Chief Servant Leader of EDSI. In the next episode, we're going to unpack what it actually means for Kevin to be a Chief Servant Leader and what it means for a company like EDSI to be recognized as a cool place to work.
This has been Culture Architects with David J. Friedman. Join us next time for more insights and wisdom from great leaders in all walks of life. To book David for your next event or to learn more about his writing, speaking, or consulting, go to davidjfriedman.com. Culture Architects with David J. Friedman is a production of CultureWise.